Hi everybody, it's Pat here from Beads and Plenty More, and today I'm going to show you how to make this bracelet that has the handmade wire caps on it. So I've done it in 3 different colors. I've got the gold, the silver, and the copper all on the one bracelet, so just to make it more interesting. And I've used a magnetic clasp on it so that it's very easy to do up and undo. So starting with the wires, I'm using 18 gauge wire, which is a very heavy wire. I did try it with a little lighter wire just because I'm using a smaller bead than I've made one before, and the lighter wire didn't turn out quite as nice. This is a sample of the lighter weight wire. It's a 20 gauge wire. It just doesn't have the firmness that the 18 has. So I'm going back to the 18. And I have a 12 millimeter bead that I'm using, and also a 6 millimeter of the same dyed jade is what they are. So that's our beads, and then our pieces of wire. I've cut 5.5 inches of 18 gauge wire in the 3 different colors, and that's for the main cap. And then we need a piece that goes through the bead, and that's a piece that's 1.5 inches. And then the joiner beads in the middle, they have a loop on each side, and they need to be a 1-inch piece. So review, we've got a 5.5 inch for the long pieces, a 1.5, that's the piece that goes through the beads, and a 1 inch for the joiner beads. So on to making our actual caps. So I'm going to take my piece of 5.5 inch wire and round nose pliers. I chose these zebra pliers because they have a really sturdy barrel, and you need quite a strong barrel to be able to make the loops on a heavy wire. Oh, before I go to that, I'm going to also talk about cutting wire. I've cut this wire with these cutters, and they're called a side cutter. So when you do a side cut of the wire, you always get the cut comes one way, but it doesn't go the other. So you get a little nasty little edge on there. So always go back in and nip off another piece. This side that's next to this part of the wire, the plier, is the right side, I guess you would call it, because it's gives you the nicest cut. So we'd cut there, and so when we cut there, we end up with a nice straight cut. And as I was told, that the way the pliers sit, this little dip in here, you can call that your little garbage bin, so that when you cut, you're going to always have your little bits going into that piece there, and so then it looks a way to remember which is the right side. So this one gives you the good cut. So always cut your wire twice in order to get that nice smooth cut. Okay, on to doing our spirals. So we take the round pliers and we do a really small loop to start with. Nice tiny little loop like that. And then you can go back in like so and do a little bit more. And then I'm going to go to the other side, and because I took this off a spool and I have this curve, I usually work with the curve, and I find wire works much better if you work with the curve rather than trying to fight against it, because it just does not like to be bent the way it opposite to what comes off the spool, if you can avoid it. Sometimes you just absolutely have to turn it that way. So get this going a little bit with the round plier and get it smoothed down. Then I'm going to move on to the chain nose plier, which will give me a flat surface. And with the chain nose, I'm going to hold tight, and I'm going to use my hand to move the wire around the center circle, not wrapping with the plier, but actually wrapping, just holding with the plier and wrapping against the other wire, forming a spiral like so. And then we'll go back to the other end and spiral it a little bit. Hold on, here we go. So we want to get this up so that they come close together in the middle. And all we need left is the amount that goes across the bead, which is this piece here. that swirls across the bead. So I'm making a spiral here and a spiral here, and then the piece that goes across the bead is that piece there. So finish this up. We're getting into the middle, and you can count your turns so that you get both sides quite equal. So you just leave a little piece in the middle, and now you go ahead and you turn one to one side and one to the other. Very important. So that you have like an S shape now. And so on top of the S shape, we're going to turn them so that they sit one on top of the other. And then I'm going to have room for the bead to go in the middle. Now, at this point, we still have a really flat spiral, which doesn't work very well for being a bead cap. So I'm just going to tighten that up. So what I'm going to do is take the round nose plier, go back into the very center, and we'll just push it down so that it tapers it out into a spiral, like that. And then on the other side, we'll do the same thing. Go in with the center of the round nose plier and push down to get a nice spiral on there, like that. Okay, so then we've got our swirl here and our two caps. Now, of course, next thing, we're going to put the bead in the middle. So I've used a copper, so I'm going to get my piece of copper wire, and I'm going to start by doing a loop, which will also work as a nice stopper. So just as in my other one, I was showing how to do an eye pin type bead, type loop. So you go around, tilt back, and then finish it. So make sure that's nice and straight so it'll go through both sides. Go into the one side of your spiral, pick up the bead, and then we're going to tilt that back into this, not that far, back into the spiral, and I want this piece to come out the other side in through the circle there. There we are. Then I'll take the chain nose plier, grab hold of that, and give it a good hard pull to make sure it's right in there. And center those down a little bit. Now we've got a little bit of extra on our bead. So what we do is take the bead and do a tightening up, one direction and one the other, so that smooths that line right across the bead really tidy. Then we're going to finish this side with another loop. That's a little bit too long. Sometimes they turn out just a bit too long. Give it another nip, and away we go with bring it back and around and nice and tight so that it holds this really snug. And you can shape it down a little bit more if you like, just to get it nice and snug. So that's the main unit of each of the beads that we're going to do. Then the joiner piece is your small bead, which I found with a smaller bead and an 18 gauge wire. There was some that the holes were not large enough, so you'll have to use some of the beads off of a strand for maybe another project, but there are some that have a nice hole for the 18 gauge wire. So here again, we're going to do a circle, loop on one side, and back that up so that we have it ready to attach onto here. And after it's attached, we just go in with the round nose pliers again and tighten it right up tight. So on the other side of the bead, we will go bring it back towards yourself and around and get a nice circle there. This one we should leave open because we're going to want to join it onto another bead. Oh, that's my lighter one, like that. So that's how the units work. So I'll go ahead and make another spiral for you, because sometimes it's nice to watch with different, and you'll find that different wires have a different temperament, so that they're a little bit, some are a little bit stronger and some are a little weaker, so it's easier to work with some wires than others. So start right at the end of the pliers, make that first circle, and then keep going a little bit with the the same plier, the round nose plier, and get that center set up. Round to the other side and the same thing. Get a nice circle and keep going a little bit. So they get a little bit on there. Then we change to the chain nose plier, the holder plier. We're just going to hold and we're going to roll that around the outside edge. And we'll go to this side so that we get them as even as I can. It's not real critical to have the spiral too tight because we are opening it up with the round nose plier once we poke through the center and separate it. So as long as it's reasonably snug. Okay, so we get it down to like that. Then we're going to take and reverse one. So then we end up with something that looks like an S. And then we're going to stack them one on top of the other. Okay, like that. And then back to the tapering. We'll just put the round nose plier in there and we'll give it a push so that it becomes a spiral. And one more time on the other side. Now you might choose to use all the same color on your design. I started out trying different colors on here and then I decided I thought they looked really nice together, so I used all three colors. And there's more than three colors in 18 gauge wire, so that you could even use more colors, but I used the same bead, the 12 millimeter dyed jade. And we have a few other 12 millimeter beads too. So again, my little piece, we're going to make a loop on that at one side so that it's a stopper and it won't go all the way through. Nice loop all the way in, and another bead. So feed that through the bead and then up and through the outside here. And again, with the chain nose pliers, it's handy to grab hold and give it a good tug. It seems to work well. And before I do the second loop, I got to get rid of this excess here. So we'll go this direction and this direction, one in each direction to get rid of that excess. And we can also rely on our nylon jaw pliers. I've got a little bit of a loop there, so I'm just going to flatten that. That looks better. Okay, so we're ready to make the other loop. So we'll make this loop over here. There we are. So there's another bead made to go into the collection. Now, I used a magnet clasp, and just show how that looks on the finished bracelet. You slide them to get that open, and it's very, very easy to put on. When you put a magnet bracelet on, it just jumps together, so you don't really have to have a second person to help you, which is kind of nice when you're doing a bracelet. So that's what we got a little piece on there. I see, I've got the second clasp attaching to the first. Yeah, they're strong. So we'll take that one. Oh, I see. Sometimes with a magnet, when you're working with a magnet too, you can take, usually I need a round nose plier in order to attach it. So you can take another pair of your pliers, say your chain nose, and separate your bracelet and just have that piece attached on there. And that way it's solid for you to work with your chain nose to attach on. Because sometimes when you're working with a magnet, like so, and you're trying to work with it, it keeps attaching to the pliers, and it's really hard to get the little turn done on your wire. So hopefully you will like this wire bracelet made with the wire caps. It's kind of a nice design. and not that difficult to make. And again, with the 18 gauge wire, and enjoy. Bye for now.